when you were 12, you had 10,000 followers to a AOL account for the Backstreet Boys.
Yeah, I would say like today's version of that would be if I had a TikTok about an artist or a Twitter slash X or Instagram account that was dedicated to an artist, but we didn't have that at that time. So the way
Right.
that a lot of younger people who were big fans and liked digital showed their appreciation for the artists they love was by it was basically making a newsletter. It was a really good like sort of business learning experience for me because I learned a lot about the first thing you learn about when you run an email list is about like rules and regulations around spam. You would send it from AOL, like from the email account. And so I had to apply and like be on this, be on a whitelist to be allowed to do that. So I learned a lot about, I think, sort of like the rules of spam and the internet at an early age because of that. But I'm really grateful for that experience. Every social media movement kind of was the result of a big hardware shift. So more people having laptops created MySpace. More people being able to text from a phone created Twitter. More people being able to have photos on their phone created Instagram. And then more people having videos on their phone created TikTok. So it's that it really is what dictates what platform comes next, in my opinion. So I'm curious to see, we'll obviously have new tools and new things come into the market, but I don't think we'll see as drastic of a shift in social platforms until there's hardware to sort of inspire that shift. Overall, I think I just have always have kind of had the mindset like I'm gonna do this no matter what, and I will keep pushing no matter what. I'm, I have those moments, but I'm not going to let it stop me. And I actually had, this was like, I feel like this moment happened at the right time in my life, but I attended a Forbes summit in Abu Dhabi. Hillary Clinton was supposed to be there. They had her like conference in, and I was fortunate enough to be, I got selected to like ask her a question directly, which was a really awesome moment for me. Then I asked her, I'm like, you went through like the greatest, like one of the greatest career losses that you can. You lost a presidential election. Why are you still here? Like, how do you keep going after that? Because I think a lot of people, if they lost a presidential election, would be like, you're never going to see me again. She's just like, I don't want people to think they're right about me. Like, I don't want the naysayers to think they're right about me. Like, it's like I almost have too much ego or too much pride to do that. But I think that's a really positive thing. And I feel the same way. Like if somebody thinks I can't do something, you're, it's, kind of secretly like not a negative motivator, but kind of a fun motivator. Like it's going to happen one way or another. So there's still a lot of problems to be solved in the music business in general. And
Hmm.
I think attaching yourself to a problem that you feel like you have insight on that people may not have thought of is a really good way to get into a business that's competitive, like the music business. I really attached myself to this, a problem or thing that wasn't being done yet. And I think that's always a good way into a business, into a business or finding your role within a field is like, don't, I mean, if you're really passionate about something like A&R, that's a more like competitive lane in music, go for it and do it. But if it's easier to win in business if you pick a lane that isn't as crowded but might have problems that affect a lot of people on a frequent basis. One of the biggest things I had to learn the hard way is that it's very different. It's a very different payment schedule in terms of how you get paid as a business versus how you get paid as an employee. So there's a lot of laws protecting employees in terms of you having to be paid, on time in the way they were promised. In business, it's a little more dicey. Like I would say most companies aren't going to pay you for at least 30 days. And sometimes they tell you they're going to pay you in 30 days, but they actually don't pay you for 6 months. And sometimes, in worst case scenario, people don't pay you ever. You get ripped off. So I've obviously evolved like my policies over the years to protect myself from, protect myself from different situations like this. So when you pick up a project, you're kind of having to invest a little bit. It's just not the same as being an employee. So really think about that when you're starting a business. Probably the hardest part of your job is not going to be the service you offer or the product you're making. The hardest part of the job for me, and I think a lot of other people who run a business, is like the personnel and staff side of it. It's really tough. That's evolves per generation too, and what's happening in the world. How you manage people before and after COVID is pretty different. How you manage people in the office versus work from home, very different. It was a hard journey, one from a business standpoint, but two emotionally, because it's hard to not take things personal when somebody that's worked for you for 5 years quits that you really liked and you felt like you had a friendship with too, or they go and or somebody leaves and goes to another company, or it can even be like emotionally daunting sometimes when you delegate a task to somebody and they don't do it. You get in your head and you're like, am I not delegating right? Do they just not like me? Do they just not care?
If you enjoy this podcast, please make sure to subscribe. And to stay updated on everything that the Action Catalyst is up to, make sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Action Catalyst Podcast and on Twitter at Catalyst_Action. And thanks for listening.